everybody. Welcome back to Maker's Bar, where we are creating 1 million leaders by speaking with leaders and learning from them. I have one here today, Amos Joseph, who's the founder and CEO of Swan AI or GetSwan.com. Amos, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate the intro. Can I have you with me, like for every introduction? I can just tell you
absolutely.
To intro me. Yeah, could that work?
100%. Tell me how you want me to introduce you each and every time, and I can do that for you.
Yeah, amazing. Let's do it. Sounds good.
Yeah. So the way I like to start these conversations, always, hey, what is your story? You can start that from childhood, from school, wherever you want to begin that story. Let's just get right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. So my story has a lot of different angles, but I think the most relevant one, starts with why I started Swan, actually. Okay, so it's not my first rodeo. I'm actually a repeated entrepreneur. So I built and scaled 2 companies before Swan. And I did like the same mistakes with both of them, basically. So I followed what I call today like the unicorn playbook, the growth at all costs playbook. And I was very focused on trying to raise money before I even got like product market fit. And then I actually built the initial team, got to like 20, 30 people before we even got to $1 million in revenues. And then, try to brute force my way into $10 million ARR without even completing one sales cycle. I brought in like a sales leadership, etc. Once I noticed that my company is already built on very sick foundation, I realized that it's too late. Right. And that's kind of like was my last 7 years of my life was dedicated to these 2 startups, building the team, raising funds, trying to scale, and eventually realizing that, all that effort goes to waste because I've kind of followed the wrong playbook, followed the wrong path, optimized for the wrong thing. And I said to myself that this time I want to do things in a completely different way. And when you look at the death of the unicorn playbook and the rise of AI agents, I felt like, wow, this is my time to rewrite the entrepreneurial playbook. This is my time to actually try to do things differently. And that led to Swan. That is basically an autonomous business. That's how we call Swan. It's an autonomous business, and it's just 3 founders collaborating with each other to get to $30 million ARR with no additional employees, just with AI agents. And it's a playbook that is built on scaling with intelligence, not with headcount. And I'd love to dig deep into that, Troy. That's the story that brings me to this conversation.
Amazing. Yeah, no, you're also one of my favorite follows on LinkedIn. As you've shared this journey, it is truly incredible. I talked to my family about you, like, hey, this guy's building a company with 3 people and they're at 10 million ARR. Like, it is truly incredible. What was it like the first sign? I know when the AI agents came to rise, you just said, what was the first sign that, hey, I think I could really build this company up to this 10, 20, 30 million ARR with just basically no team, just the founders there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it didn't start with a sign. It actually started with a constraint. Okay, so Plato has this saying that necessity is the mother of all innovation, right? And when we started Swan, we didn't know exactly that. Okay, we were going to scale to $30 million ARR with just 3 employees. It wasn't about that. It was more about okay, let's say that we're not adding any more headcount. It's just the 3 of us. Okay, my 2 co-founders were with me in my previous endeavors and previous companies, and we all shared the same frustration from the previous playbook, and we all agreed that we want to do it different. So we said, okay, let's just try to build it our own, like no help from the outside, no additional hires, anything. And we started documenting our journey on LinkedIn, and what we realized soon is that we've hit a nerve that a lot of people are looking at this new model that we're building, and they feel like, I want to do the same. I also want to scale with intelligence, not with headcount. I'm also sick of that playbook. That propelled all of our, attention that we got. A lot of people, getting to learn more about Swan, etc. We start closing deals, and soon we were at more than 100 customers, companies that were actually selling to them a product that we built ourselves, and we realized, okay, this could actually be done. Could actually be something real, and from there we felt like, okay, this is now our main mission, and we're not going to add any more team members.
Amazing. And could you go into the product you're selling, the product that you're implementing into these different companies, and the value provided there?
Yeah, definitely. So we believe that there's like a bigger transition in place, and that AI brings to the table, that we're moving from an era where there's an app for this to there's an app for me. Okay. And we believe that transition happens both in the business world as well. So what we're actually building is what we call an AI go-to-market engineer. Okay, for the folks of you who know Lovable or all these language prompting developer tools, so Swan is like Lovable but for GTM. It's basically an engineering resource that help SMBs, small to medium businesses, find, discover, and build agentic workflows for their go-to-market motion. So they could actually build an app for me for their go-to-market motion. They could design an AI that fits their unique business, unique go-to-market motion, and help them run go-to-market motions that are agentic and customized to what they want.
It's super cool. Do you have like a case study that you could go into for people that don't know Lovable? The way that I like to describe it is you can log on and you can build a video game just because you have an engineer there. Just tell, hey, I want to make this game, and so you just have your own personal AI engineer. And like that's kind of a case study that I'll use. Like go and log on and make your own backgammon game, whatever it is. And do you have like a case study that when you're talking to someone like, oh, I kind of know AI, I'm not really sure exactly what it all does, that you provided to a customer?
Yeah, so I'll probably 2 use cases. One is a little bit more advanced, but that's like the hottest use case that we have right now. And the second one will be a little bit easier to grasp. So what we realize is that the motion that businesses really want to run right now is reaching out to leads showing intent. What does that mean? It means that there are some leads that are visiting their website but didn't fill out a form or requested a demo, but they're already on our website and we want to engage with them. But running a motion for these types of visitors is very complex, and so you can just work with Swan. It lives in Slack. You can just work with Swan and tell it, okay, you know what? Today, instead of building a video game, let's build a go-to-market motion for my anonymous website visitors. And then what Swan basically has in the backend is that it has access to your systems, it has access to third-party data providers, and it has access to AI models. And it can just help you build out that motion using these tools. So you can just say, okay, you know what? I want you to de-anonymize that traffic. Then I want you to research these companies and qualify them, make sure that they are kind of fits our ICP, that they're relevant leads. Then I want you to segment these companies, like for example, for like high tech and low tech, right? Then I want you to say, you know what, if it's low tech, I want you to send it to this sales rep. And if it's high tech, I want you to send it to this sales rep, and already find all the relevant contacts within this company that we want to reach out to and prepare personalized messaging for every one of them. Waiting for that sales rep to actually just hit the button to send it. So that is something that you can just, vibe code your way into through Slack, something that, could have taken months for an SMB to run through all these complicated systems that they have, partnering with a lot of data providers and trying to unlock these AI capabilities within every step of the workflow.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. And then is there, just out of my own curiosity here, or did you build your own backend with the team? Like, or are you using N8N and like all these other available tools? How did you guys go about providing the solution?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a combination of like third-party tools we use and things that we built in-house. But the core architecture, let's call it, okay, it's you have a large language model. It could be Anthropic or OpenAI, and we actually use different models for different types of agents. There you have like these smarter agents when you need they have more decision making power, and every decision can impact the entire workflow. So you give that to like more sophisticated models. So you have that large language model. Then you connect it to the first party systems of the business. So it has access to your CRM. It has access to your sequencing tool, etc. So we can actually perform actions within these systems. Then we also connected it with data pipelines so that it could actually research companies using external resources. It can use Perplexity actually to run online research on a company. So you can just call out and say, hey, Perplexity, I want to know if this company is just completed a fundraise in the last 30 days. And Perplexity can get back with an answer to that agent. Or it has B2B databases that it can get contact information, or like how much revenue do they have, or things like that. So we gave that large language model access to these tools, basically, getting data and performing actions within the systems, but also the ability to call the model by itself, just to give it, I have here data, but I want another agent to actually build it itself. So there's an agent that can build an agent on itself. Okay. And so basically that's like from a technological perspective, there's like an application here that takes the model, connects it to all these systems. And then what we tried to do basically is give it the ability to reason and think whatever it needs to do at each step. So instead of like a logic-based workflow, where you try to say, okay, if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that. It's an agent. It has like a text-based instructions, like a playbook. And each time there's kind of like a step in that playbook, it reasons and say, okay, which tools do I need to use now? It completed that task. It goes back to the playbook and asks itself again, okay, what tools should I use now? And what should I move on to the next step? And so instead of trying to build these rigid workflows, you have something more intelligent that could actually think at every step of the process, what should be the next thing? What should I do? How should I handle that lead? And so it's not only abstracting away all the system complexity that the SMBs have, but it also unlocks new, go-to-market motions that you didn't even imagine that you could run.
Yeah. The concept of what you've built out is very common now. Like I hear about this all the time. But what I don't see is the success. Like don't get me wrong, I see a lot of small-time successful people, but you've succeeded on a very large scale. So I'm curious about how your go-to-market strategy came about. What has been the most successful thing for you from going from 0 to 1, maybe 0 to 100,000, from 100,000 to a million? What were the things that you found that maybe that differentiated yourself from the old you when you were first getting into this journey 7 years ago?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really does differentiate me from the old me. So, first of all, we're living in a world where developing a product is easy, okay, and going to market is the hardest thing that you can have as a business right now. Rising above the noise, the scarcest resource right now is not engineering, it's not product, it's attention. Attention is the scarcest resource right now, and that's what you're fighting on. And that's the hardest thing to capture at scale when you run a business. And so you can have an amazing product, but if you don't have a system to get it into your buyer's face and eyes and ears, then it won't work. No one will use it. So we had a very different approach to our go-to-market strategy, which was built on creating a movement. So instead of just trying to sell you a go-to-market engineer or run better motions for your buyers showing intent or all this boring stuff, what we set out to say is to actually make a difference in the world, to unlock this new model for scale of businesses, what we call the autonomous business. And we tried rallying a movement around us of other SMBs who are looking to scale with intelligence, not with headcount. And our focus was around that core concept of let's write a new playbook, let's share that story with the world, and basically let's try to get them rallied around it. So they want to make that transformation as well. And when we market Swan, we don't market our product, we market the transformation that we're unlocking for companies. It's all about becoming an autonomous business. It's all about scaling with intelligence, not with headcount. And when you look at it from a tactical perspective, these could be just words up in the air. And for some of you, that might sound okay, but what do I do with that, right? It's just it's just a story, right? So what we did is we connected a very powerful thing. We said, okay, not only do we have a powerful story and narrative, but we also want to have like a powerful narrator, right? And a narrator is a person. It's not a company. Okay. And that was me basically starting to share that story with the world, right? And the fact that it was successful and powerful was that I was the most well-positioned person on planet Earth to tell that narrative. Right? Why? Because we were a 3-person team scaling, and we set out to share that story, but we didn't talk about ourselves. We talk about the autonomous business. We give it as an example that we're doing it, right? Just to show proof, to show credibility, to earn the right to tell that story. And so what we connected is a powerful narrative with a powerful narrator. And we built a strong personal brand on LinkedIn. And what started as just, LinkedIn posts propelled and grew into a movement where we have people talking about the autonomous business. I've been invited to talk at conferences, at podcasts, and a lot of people are looking to learn more about this new operating system for scale, because they start believing that this is the future of SMBs becoming more autonomous businesses. And so what we try to grow is the attention for becoming an autonomous business, not attention for Swan, not attention for our AI go-to-market engineer, and all our tactics that are revolving around that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And just speaking with you, I mean, if you follow you on Twitter, or not on Twitter, sorry, that's why I get a lot of my guests on LinkedIn, and it's easy to tell like how great of a voice you have, and your ability to coin these terms and all these things. When you even talking with you here for 15, 20 minutes, it's very easy to tell. Like you're very passionate, and you have this intelligence that you can coin these terms. And I think you're the right guy. You're definitely the right guy for it. Just given your background plus the storytelling that you do bring, it makes a ton of sense. And honestly, like, there's a handful of people that I'm like, hey, if you're gonna go to LinkedIn and you're going all in, like you are a startup founder, you just quit your job to go full time into your side hustle, whatever it is. Like now it's time to go all in on LinkedIn and social media. You're one of the few people I'm like, hey, you gotta follow this guy. It's such a good job. The other person that comes to mind, Abby Murray. She just she's a copywriting company, StoryArt. They're also fantastic. She's also great. But I bring up you two a lot. It is truly just like very inspiring. As you're telling that story, my mind's going back to LinkedIn. Like, oh yeah, I can see it.
yeah. So, but I feel like it's hard to rise above the noise in these social media games, and it's my message, for the future leaders out there. It's not about you need to get your LinkedIn game going on, and you need to build your personal brand. And I don't want that the message to be. What the lesson that I've learned that I did. You asked me what I did differently, from previous endeavors, and the first most important lesson was to identify your core strength and try to lean into them. So you mentioned, Troy, that I'm a good storyteller. I also love to write. And I have this ability to coin terms and et cetera. And so I leaned into this narrative go-to-market strategy because I love creating narratives. I love speaking about it, and I love storytelling, et cetera. I leaned into my strength to actually, perfect it. And so what I encourage, listeners is basically to think different and to lean into their strength. And don't follow the playbooks too much. Don't get too attached, to what's working out there, because you need to understand what could work for you. And we actually believe that Our entire thesis around AI is centered around that notion specifically. So if you remember earlier in the conversation, I mentioned that we believe that the future is there's an app for me, and every company has their own unique go-to-market motion. And Swan is built so that you can amplify your go-to-market strength. And so we believe that the future of AI is not about AI replacement. It's not about taking over your workforce. It's not about digital workers. It's about human AI collaboration, because the best way to use AI is to amplify your strength, not to just try to replace everything with a generic model that just spits out generic answers. It's about actually finding that perfect human AI collaboration mode.
Yeah, that makes sense. And could we actually go into your team a bit? I feel like in only 20 minutes, the audience has been able to see like, hey, this is what makes Amos special, and he's leaning into his strengths, and you can see them here very strongly. Let's talk about the other two members of your team very quickly. Could you represent them and what they do so well? What makes them great team members? What made you all come together as a team there?
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful question. The more we grow as a 3-person team, the more I realize how lucky I am to work with them, and how coincidental it was that we are just the most competent team to actually grow as a 3-person team. Okay. So there's like an amazing division of labor here between us. So I'm in charge of growth, right? Just getting our voice out there and trying to get capture attention, generate demand, etc. We have Neve, the CTO, who's like a crazy mofo, sorry for my language, for actually taking products from 0 to 1 and from 1 to 10, like with his bare hands. So he's like he built already with me 2 startups, so he's been to that ride. He learned so many lessons, and he has that passion for coding that he's okay with just building a system on its own that's serving more than 100 of customers in real time. It's the scale. It's B2B companies. It's not like you're serving consumers that you can have issues. You need uptime. You need a system to actually work good there, depending their pipeline on it. So it's crazy to actually see what a one person like a 1-person engineering team could actually output. Right.
That is amazing, truly. Like that is truly have one person with 100 customers, give or take. Like, wow, like it speaks to our times, but also himself. Like the ability to do that by yourself is just truly incredible.
Exactly. It's a connection, both of you, as you mentioned, the time. So there is a lot of AI capabilities out there. There's a lot of abstraction and libraries, things like that you can skip a lot of development work that you did in the past. But you need to know, how can you do that? How can you orchestrate, resource utilization, but also fine tune the UI, right? You need to understand how can you create, a pipeline to get code into production, but also make sure that, when that feature works, it works in a good, runtime. So you have that all this complexity in so many diverse areas. And he was like a jack of all trades, and when it comes to engineering, that's crazy. And I know how lucky we are to have him on our team. Then we have Ido, who's the CPO, the chief product, and Ido is like a very unique combination of like super technical person that knows a bit how to code as well. So he has an understanding of how code works, from an architectural perspective, from a language perspective, etc. But also he's a very business-oriented person. So he's kind of like has the ability to actually, balance both sides of the equation of like, there's demand from the business, and then there's supply from the R&D, and how can you kind of like balance that in a very efficient way? How do you communicate this between business and engineering in a great way? But what you add on top of it is 2 things. One is he's like very obsessed to small details, to like design, to interfaces as well. So he just creates beautiful products. It's not only about the technical stuff. It's also about getting down to the last pixel and the interface to make it beautifully and to enjoy like, an icon on the right side here that just fits perfectly, and to say, oh, that is just beautiful, right? So that is a super important capability with Edo. And finally, I would say that's the most important thing. And I would say that's maybe potentially the biggest growth lever that we have. Edo is a very kind of like obsessed no-code guy. He could actually take, an AI model, NA10, use our product or whatever to build a lot of these custom workflows within the company. And so what we have now is an army of AI agents. Some of them Swan built for our go-to-market, but a lot of them it's actually something that Edo stitched together and built it. So I have, for example, an executive assistant that works for me in Slack that Edo has built for me. I can chat with it, learn about my schedule, help me prepare for meetings, understand customer data, research about attendees, things like that, all within Slack. Something that Edo built for me like in a couple of days, right? So this notion to really be able to be the balancing side between product and business, but also to be able to support them with these no-code capabilities is such a crazy combination.
Yeah, that is a crazy combination. And, it brings it all together. It ties the three of you together right there with him in that position. And yeah, it's just, I love what you're building here. And it is just so wildly unique. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of people building AI companies and trying to build things similar to what you've built. But with the three people there, like that part of it, building the autonomous business, the language we speak with it, again, it's just so unique. Do you see, let's look 5-10 years down the road, I'd love to see where you see this company and you guys, but also where do you see the industry as a whole, that the AI this industry that you've found yourself in as entrepreneurs and founders?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we look at Swan and the vision of Swan, it's not about the employee size. It's not about employee count. Okay. It's more about the fact that we are scaling with intelligence. And when you look at that metric, we are the number one in the world. So what we're more focused on is what we call the Swan metric. It's ARR per employee. Okay. So annual recurring revenue per employee. And that's the number one metric that we're focused on increasing at our company. We want to get to $10 million ARR per employee. That's like basically our goal, and we want to maintain that. So if we add another employee, we need to generate $10 more million in annual recurring revenue to justify that hiring, right? And we believe that the Swan metric, that ARR per employee, is basically the best predictor for the ability of a company to survive in an AI native era. If you have a very low ARR per employee and you're a bloated company, then that means that you're based on headcount, you're not based on intelligence, and you don't really, you can't really sustain a world where AI is ubiquitous, right? But if you have very high ARR per employee, what does that mean? That means that you're scaling with intelligence, not with headcount, basically. And what we found is that when you look at kind of like the future of these businesses, is that we feel like there's going to be two different businesses that will evolve. So we have these autonomous businesses that are scaling with intelligence, not with headcount. And then you have these regular bloated businesses that are still reliant on headcount as the main driver for growth. And what you see is that for autonomous businesses, they have what I call acceleration as a moat. What does that mean, Troy? Acceleration as a moat. It means that with every breakthrough in LLM and large language models, the entire business grows exponentially. What does that mean? Is that if your entire operating system is built on large language models and on AI, if the model gets a little bit smarter, then your entire business gets smarter, right? You can deliver better support resolutions to your customers. You can have better onboarding processes. You can deliver better pipeline generation efforts because that's your product and it's built on that AI. If there's an improvement in latency of the model, it means that support tickets get resolved faster. It means that the interactions feels more natural, more instant with the product, right? Everything gets faster and better in that way. If you look at cost, if there's a reduction in cost in the model, then yeah, your entire business just gets more efficient because to deliver the same amount of support queries, you just need less resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
And since we're at the beginning of the LLM revolution, we believe that autonomous businesses has this acceleration as a mode built into them, and in 5 more years, we will be able to spot these two types of businesses from a miles away. And ARR per employee is just a good predictor to look at it. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes a ton of sense. And as the years go by, 5 years from now, today, 5 years ago, what have you been doing to stay atop of trends, atop of what's new? What is your process there to stay up to date and to keep learning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like there's too much FOMO today. People are too much focused on trying to stay on top. Okay. And I feel like it's actually, it leads to people having kind of like what I call an external locus of control. Okay, so there's like an internal locus of control and external locus of control. Internal locus of control means that you're looking inwards when you're trying to solve things, and when things doesn't work, you're still looking inwards. So you can say, I didn't manage to solve my homework because I didn't approach the problem correctly. An external locus of control means that I didn't solve the homework because there was a lot of noise outside. Okay. So what happens today is that a lot of leaders, go-to-market leaders, engineering leaders, whatever, they look at that external locus of control to try to think, which tool should I buy? What is the latest advancement in LLM that maybe I should adopt, and that will save my company and turn me into an autonomous business? And what I want to tell to these leaders is that it's not about the answers doesn't lay outside. They're always within your business. Nothing has changed. You should always identify, challenges, bottlenecks, processes that you run day to day that you feel like are not working well, and look for ways to optimize them. Everything starts from there, basically. But if you want to get better at AI, it's not by reading. It's by interacting. So it's a muscle. AI is like a thinking muscle. It's like going to the gym. And if you want to get better at AI, the only way to do it is interact with AI. So you still need to identify challenges, have that internal locus of control, look inwards when you're looking to improve. But if you want to get better at AI, stop reading and start interacting with it. Everything moves so fast. It won't help you to read about the latest advancement in LLM. It won't help you to read about this new tool that emerged because another tool will replace it in a few months. The only thing that you can do to actually make sure that you are prepared for that future is try to develop that muscle, to try to work with AI as a thought companion, and to try to embed it into your workflows as much as you can.
That makes sense. That's actually how I've gone about learning about it. So when I started Maker's Bar, just to turn this on to me for a second, my favorite topic. When I started Maker's Bar, I just had a podcast where I talked to basically investors because I had a vending machine company in college. I started to go. I was my first steps into entrepreneurship and into business at all. I did no thoughts of being a business person going into college, and I started talking about that. And as we kind of evolved and moved and grown as just myself and here at Maker's Bar, I find myself talking to more and more AI people. So I started from ground zero. And to go back to our earlier in our conversation, when I started hearing about Lovable, I just got on there and I started poking around. And I literally, one of the first things I did is I just made a little video game. And I was like, okay, this is a good way to explain this to people now. And it makes a ton of sense. And the gym analogy, it makes a ton of sense there. The more we talk, the more these little nuggets of wisdom and the more the terms I hear coined out here, and it is super impressive. I'm kind of curious here on your own personal growth, your own journey here, as I was talking about myself. Were there any resources, be that courses, mentors in business, maybe professors, books, anything in particular that has been instrumental in your personal and professional growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I always I fell in love with philosophy in college, university, basically, and most of my biggest lessons that I've learned in life was actually from philosophy. And so I actually recommend, if people don't read a lot of philosophy related books or anything, just start to play around with it, because even the most basic things could change a lot how you look at the universe. The one that actually impacted me the most was Karl Popper. It's like a science philosopher, okay, the philosophy of science. And what struck me the most is that science is the art of seeking the truth of the universe in a way that strong opinions loosely held. So you have this entire foundation that you've built your entire science space on it. If it's like physics or like astrophysics, for example, so you have all these rules that the entire astrophysics paradigm is built on, and it's sacred, right? It's sacred. But the moment that you can prove that one thing doesn't work, is not true, then everyone accepts it, right? And you just move on to the next thing, right? So this fact that you're always seeking the truth, you're never there. Basically, you can never really get to the truth. You can only validate or refute your assumptions. That's the only thing that you can have. Gives you that ability to to believe in 100% everything that that you do in your business, and have that strong conviction. But then at the same time, break everything and say, what, we're throwing it out the window. We're doing something completely different the moment that you understand that you're wrong. And I feel like that for entrepreneurs, that mindset of, trying to seek the truth, but understand that you'll never get there. Always be open-minded to the fact that you're wrong, and try to understand that it's always a process of validation and refutation. It's always that process of actually, strong opinions loosely held. That was one of the most powerful things that I've, learned in my life.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I noticed that you mentioned Plato earlier in the conversation too. So I thought you'd be a philosophy guy, just kind of hearing you drop that early on. And one of my best friends is just a massive philosophy guy. Whenever I go to his house, the entire bookshelf is just either music. He's a musician. It's either music or philosophy, and it's I'd have to ask him about Karl Popper, and I'll have to read some of him myself, because that's someone I actually haven't delved into yet. So I'm excited about that. And so you were talking about mindset, the mindset of the entrepreneur has to have. I've heard a lot of different opinions, and I'm very curious to hear yours on, like, as far as like the work-life balance thing goes. I've heard people like, hey, especially if you're in your 20s, I'm still in my 20s, and like a lot of entrepreneurs I've talked to, especially the ones that are kind of 30s, 40s, 50s, like, hey, if you're in your 20s, work-life balance isn't a thing. That's the mindset. Like, you're going to be working. I've heard the exact opposite. Like, I've heard this is an opinion that's all over the board. So I'm very curious to see kind of where you stand on that spectrum. When you think work-life balance, and you, as someone who's built multiple companies and building this incredible company in Swan AI, how do you think about that, or how do you go about that type of balance?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. And I think it's so hard to have a decisive point of view on that. I would say that I'm more on the side of work smarter, not harder. Okay. So it's not about your input, it's about your output. That's always the what you need to look at. And for some people it means that they need to grind hard 24/7 to maximize their output. But for some people that just doesn't work. I know that I'm at a place today where I have a wife and a kid, so that's different than maybe a 20, 30 years old person who's trying to build their first company. But I know that if I will work 24/7, then my output will actually decrease, right? The level of productivity, and I'll be able to actually take out of myself. And we're a 3-person team, and we're trying to do the impossible, but we still try to find time for our family and stuff, because we're building for the long term. And I think you need to understand, strong opinions loosely held and everything, but you need to understand that there's, in startups, there's this mentality of you need to identify when it's the time to push hard and when it's the time to a little bit think little bit longer term. So you need to have that, balancing capability. So yeah, maybe you're entering like 3 months where if you don't, take the most out of what you can do, then you lose, and you probably will close the business or anything. But if you're just trying, like at every single point of time, just extract 150% of yourself, then you get burnt off eventually, right? You can't really sustain that over a period of time, like 4 years, 5 years. And building a business it's not 6 months, it's not 1 year, it's not 2 years. It takes years to build a business. So remember that. It's okay to burn yourself sometimes, just if you know when to actually, try to breathe and take a little bit more energy inside. So try to be. It's all about the balance. That's what I say. It's the balancing between being super hardcore and between trying to think more about the outside.
Makes sense. It makes sense. And what advice would you give to somebody who, whether they be 23, 30, 35, they're really taking that first step into starting their first business or taking on that first leadership role? What advice would you have for them?
So I'd say this: it's different. If you're building your first business or if you're taking your first leadership role, I would say they're like two different types of advice. But in both, I'll try to consolidate into one, basically. Okay, my advice is to always think first principles. So we're living in a world where disinformation moves so fast. Everyone is an expert at everything, and you need to understand what's your position, what's your truth, what do you believe in, how do you want to engage problems. Try to practice this internal discovery phase at everything you do, so you can learn from others, listen to others. But when you're solving a new problem, don't just follow a playbook that you absorb from the outside. Try to discover what is your playbook. And it comes from first principle thinking. Try to, poke everything at that playbook. Try to evaluate everything and really find your point of view on life, on processes, on work, on people. And I think that's one of the most important things that people can get lost these days.
I love that. I love that attitude and that mindset to have. And as far as skills to build, or what's the most important skills for an entrepreneur to have to be successful?
So I would say that having AI as a thought partner could be 100x improvement. Basically, could give you an unfair advantage. So I believe that it's the only thing that I would say as skill that could help you, because everyone is unique and every person has their own skills. And I really believe in the fact that you should really lean into your core strength. So if a skill isn't in your core strength, don't try to acquire it if it just doesn't make sense for you, right? So if you're not really good at math, don't try to be that shrewd analyst guy or something like that. That just doesn't fit you. So I don't think that's the solution, but having AI as a thought partner is a skill that everyone can acquire. And it could we're at a point of time that if you're a first mover to actually acquire that skill, you just get an unfair advantage over your peers, basically. And what today, for me, it's very hard to think without AI, right? I have, something that requires a little bit of strategy or creativity, or I need to think things through. I immediately open, ChatGPT or Claude, and I start interacting with it. Just interacting with it, doesn't matter how. I just use it as a tool to process my thoughts, basically. And so I believe that mastering that skill could give everyone right now an unfair advantage, just because we're at that moment of time where it's still new.
Yeah, I agree completely. And that's what I'm spending my evenings doing is when I'm not in Omaha, when I'm back home, it's just me, the girlfriend, the dog. I only have a dog to take care of. So go for a walk, we go to the park, and then I'm back on learning and playing and tinkering. And it's nice to hear that validated from someone who's had so much success here. And as you look forward to the future, last question, I'm going to let you go back to your kid and your wife and your family, and your day, your evening. as you look forward in the future, let's say 1 year or 2 years from now, you're coming back on Maker's Bar, we're catching up. What has Swan AI accomplished? Where are y'all heading for that time?
Yeah. So what we did is actually we built the collective intelligence for autonomous businesses. What does that mean? A collective intelligence, it's an AI model, a large language model, that has access to gated content that was developed by the community from the best builders out there who are truly building autonomous businesses. And it's the source of truth for everyone who's trying to build an autonomous business. That's the holy grail that I want to build. That's the change that I want to make in the world. I want to create that space where, if you have a question about how to build more autonomous, you go there. There's a community of people who are building more autonomous there, and it's that space out there in the internet that gives hope to SMBs that they could scale and fight the biggest guys in their space just by scaling with intelligence, not with headcount. And I want to invest my passion into building that, with a coalition of builders, alongside me. And so if we'll accomplish that, I believe that, everything else will just, unfolds in a positive way for us.
I definitely think you're well on your way there. Truly, it's one of the most amazing companies, the most amazing missions I've ever come across. And I've definitely come across more than the average person, given what I do here for fun. And I really, really appreciate your time. Really look forward to staying connected and following your journey on LinkedIn and having you back on in the future and all those things, because I'm truly blown away by you, your team, your company, and the ability and the want to build a swan, not a unicorn. And I'm so excited to see where this goes. So Amos, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your flexibility before even meeting here. Good, genuine man. I can tell that from an hour hearing and emails before. And I look forward to staying in touch here.
Yeah, Troy, it was a pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.